Now live. Faz Radio time. Fast all the time. You turn up this music. Can you hear it?
Oh, I can hear it.
You gotta cut it off right at the beat. Oh, and I missed the beat. We're live! Faz Radio. Tonight, we're talking about stuff. Titan's a little busy right now. Titan's busy.
Stuff and things.
We got some stuff. I put a title in here that said, what was the title? Something about, can you actually work for a DAO? That's kind of a an Easter egg for later. If we have a surprise guest show up, talk about a DAO. Otherwise, I'll just talk about it anyway. But we'll just talk about it less. Now, you were telling me just before the show, after I was talking about vacations and really unsavory medical procedures, you're telling me that you've been reading all week long, very intently.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who normally you don't have to like question their commitment to the cryptoverse, for lack of a better way to put it, who are starting to get really scared and posting all this. I don't want to use the word fearful, but posting unlike the way that they normally post. And they're questioning things a lot more, and they're asking interesting questions revolving around, hey, is this actually going to last? Is the pressure from the SEC too much for this space to take this early? And I'm like, man, it just never ceases to amaze me. It took a lot longer than I thought it would, but it's starting to have people question whether or not things are going to hang out.
Were these people actually around for the past bear market?
A lot of them, like 16, 17, from at least who I normally follow on these.
Oh, they started crypto in 2016, 2017.
Yep. And then there's a couple OGs who did Bitcoin in 8, 9, and 10, but
well, people, it's good for ratings. It's good for they may not really care, but of course, you want people to listen. It's easier to get people to look at a car accident than it is to watch, I don't know, a boring tennis match or something.
Boring tennis match.
Who watches tennis?
People still watch it. There's a guy who tried to set himself on fire at the Federer, Andre Federer or whatever.
And
the guy who
doing great things for tennis.
Well, that was the guy who refused to get the jab and got basically tossed out of pretty much all the major. I don't know what you call them, matches, maybe.
Oh, he was a player. He was an actual player.
Yeah, and they wouldn't let him go to the Australian Open, and
then he sets himself on fire. Okay, well, that's the way.
No, he didn't. A guy from the stands he went and sat down, started slathering himself up with stuff, and started a little fire on the court. And they ran out there and grabbed him. And
well, was it possible to grab him if he slathered himself up like that?
Well, they didn't give him much of a chance. He got basically his neck and his arms done, and then they kind of hauled him off of there. There's a lot of protests, and I'm surprised that the MSM isn't following a lot of that.
Well, this is not the Titan Conspiracy Channel. We are talking crypto.
Well, this has the part of it has to do. Lebanon closed their banks. They've gotten people robbing the banks to get their own money out.
Oh yeah, I
Because,
heard about that. Robbing banks, and they ask for just the amount that's in their account.
right, they're only robbing it for what is theirs. But they had like in over 3 days, I think it was like 10 robberies. And so they locked up every bank, shut down every bank, put armed guards everywhere. And it's just absolutely insane. And then the other part that ties into crypto with this Iran thing is that they're trying to set up people with crypto wallets over in Iran who want to get out, because there is basically no communication. Everything's shut down there because of the riots that are going on. And the controversy thickens because Elon Musk, I guess, has decided to turn on his Starlink internet service.
Oh, for free, probably.
Yeah, to try and let people communicate. And they're trying to teach them how to download crypto wallets so they can get the money to get out of Iran if they want to. So there's all kinds of turmoil going on. I guess the British pound fell even further down to like 97 cents on the dollar.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the financial world right now is just a complete train wreck everywhere.
I was just watching, I just saw a little clip from MSNBC about some dude absolutely fucking wigging out over the fact that they think the Biden administration is going to screw up the economy, or rather, federal chair Jay Powell. I was like, well, I'd expect that from the other side, but now you have both sides screaming about it. And basically they're like, look, all this inflation that you're trying to combat with all these basis points that you're going up, you guys have addressed it. And I actually don't have much of an opinion on that, because I think the Fed system is basically just trying to support itself and support its own relevance. And of course they're going to do that. They've got to fix the money that they manage. And the only way they know how to fix it is to somehow make it more viable again. But so I still think that the war for crypto replacing fiat isn't over. It's just begun.
The part that really gets me is that there's some prominent people that are really starting to question whether the Fed knows what they're doing. I think they do know what they're doing, and they're trying to minimize the damage, but it's going to be big. We printed, trillions and trillions of dollars over the last 6 years.
Did you make that announcement, or did you forget?
I'm typing as I'm talking. That's why I'm talking so slow.
Well, I can keep going on about bullshit if you want.
What do you want to call forged DAO? What do you want to call that for now?
Forged DAO, huh? What? All right, did you just reveal my surprise that I announced earlier? Thank you.
Shit, maybe. Okay. Possibly.
Well, he probably won't be here anyway. So anyway, I did want to talk about a neat article I read about working for a DAO, which is tangentially related. And if Forged was around later, then he can give some comments on it. But not yet.
All right.
We have other things to talk about first.
Yeah, so I'm about to hit enter. Yes, I want to send now. Publish. All right, there we go. Announcement has been announced.
So, yeah, my thought on fiat is that fiat is not going to go willingly. And there's a nice, an interesting quote I heard from Brad Garlinghouse the last day or so, where he was told that the Fed will the Fed will fight for fiat. There'll be tanks in the streets before they give it up. So the whole notion of crypto being for everyone, and being money that is not controlled by a country is still pretty far out. The feds really, really, really don't like the fact that there's a money that can manage itself, because, well, if you have a fiat money system and you run out of money, you can print more. But if all your people rely on themselves regarding money, then what do you have? I mean, you can tax people, but you can't. It's kind of funny, we think that countries support themselves via taxes, but they also support themselves through not taxing you, by devaluing their money and playing games with their money and stuff like that. And it's to the point where they're pretty much convinced it's completely within their right to do that whenever they want. That's why crypto is a problem. It's a total change in how that works. And even if crypto is around as something that, is used by a minority, that can be a problem, especially if that minority gets rich from crypto. Still there, Mr. Titan?
Yeah, I'm over here running my yip and I'm on mute. So it's scaring bigger people, right? So Jamie Dimon had just created a talk, if you will, really trying to put some FUD into Bitcoin and downplaying the whole crypto thing. Now, mind you, they're developing their own tokens at the same time, of course.
Oh, so you're talking about the Jamie Dimon quote that's on the interwaves right now, where he totally rips crypto a new one, and then at the very end is like, crypto's a Ponzi scheme, it's crap, it's this, it's that, it's the other thing, and by the way, you should use Bitcoin.
Yeah. So it's I think you hit the nail on the head. They can't control it, and they know that. And before people, or at least enough people, realize that and realize the power that creates when you can control your own tokens or your own coins, and you don't need all the people that make things work, but you can use that crypto to work with them instead of for them, it makes a huge difference. Well, and they say, I think at this point, between the regulatory issues and all of these speeches by prominent people trying to downplay and scare people away, I think they're at the fight me phase at this point. And it's coming to a head, and I think they're going to make an extra push, especially while this economy's down.
Yeah. So that actually, let's bring that part up, because I was just reading today. I was actually reading yesterday or the day before about the CFTC lawsuit against a DAO. And of course, the whole idea of a DAO is it's a decentralized organization. You can't go after individual officers of a DAO, or sorry, you go after a company, and you might go after the individual officers of a company or something like that. But a DAO is more decentralized than that. You can have 1 million people voting. And this lawsuit actually targeted the people, if I'm not mistaken, the people that were voting. The voters.
I did not see that.
Yes, just look up CFTC lawsuit against Uki DAO. Uki. Now apparently they were likely doing something wrong to get away from being regulated. But the point is, I gotta find that article. I sent it to you in chat, dude.
I don't think I saw
Check
that.
your chat. Oh no, maybe you didn't. Hold on. Let me go look at another window. Hold on. Stay right there. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what you're doing?
Of course, all the time. It's just
Uh-huh.
world has to catch up with my brain. CFTC files lawsuit against decentralized autonomous organization. Let me paste this in your chat window, and then later we'll have to put this. Why don't I just put this in chat here? Have a chat.
Great idea.
No viewers commenting right now. They're all having fun.
Well, we got started a little late, and tonight was my fault.
All your fault. Again.
Yeah, no, well, my kids had an event, and I had to be there for that. I got to be a dad. I can't just be a podcaster all the time.
We work for large amounts of free every week.
Right?
So.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this is amazing.
So if you click on that, you'll see that they went after, or at least they're starting to name individuals in the DAO, and this becomes problematic. Because that means if you were to join a DAO, you're opening you could theoretically open yourself up to some sort of backlash by the government.
Well, the narrative, as I read through this, the narrative seems to be following Gensler's latest statement, because the quote that I have here in that article you sent, during the relevant period, multiple UkiDAO members have resided in the United States and conducted UkiDAO business. So they're trying to say that because they were in the U.S. has jurisdiction, is really what they're saying, I think.
Well, they're going to find ways to get in there. Anyway, the head of the CFTC actually dissented against this very thing. Where's that at? It's not actually listed here, I think. Let me find another link that I had.
You know, that is dangerous. And I think this could be the same thing that the Ripple case is based on, is they're just throwing shit up against the wall to see if they can get some kind of precedent set to move forward. So they're just going to pick some weak links, or what they feel are weak links, try and get a win out of it, so that potentially they can just start citing that and trying to get more wins down the road.
Well, the CFTC was the people that I think all the anti-Gary Gensler people wanted to kind of oversee crypto, and here they're doing exactly the same thing. They simply serve a lawsuit right up out of the blue. This one seems to have been settled already. I sent you a second article there. Let me send it to everyone else here. And basically, like the head of the CFTC is like dissenting that what they just did, which is a little weird. It's like they can't even decide what the fuck they want to do.
Well, so falling in line with that, there's people, I'm sure, at the CTFC that want to be like Gensler and just regulate by enforcement, and they want to come out showing a strong, hard press into this space. And the whole reason the CTFC was to be involved is to avoid that kind of SEC, hammer first kind of approach. And it kind of defeats the purpose, I think, because all it's going to do is set the U.S. back, because the rest of the world is going to move forward whether the U.S. does or not. And it's going to make it increasingly more difficult for companies to innovate here, for companies to utilize the technology that's available. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think they need to find a way to embrace it. And work with each other on trying to come up with some kind of consensus in the middle where both sides can be happy.
I think what they really got to do is convince people that they're not going to lose any power while they're losing power.
Or at least keep the appearance up.
Well, that's the thing. The current order is being upset, and nobody knows how it's gonna hash out.
Ha! I see what you did there.
Oh,
Hash out.
huh.
Wow. That mountain air gave you a weird dad joke sense of humor all of a sudden.
Anyway, so we had some other subjects to talk about.
Well, I did read through the article that you did send me, the one on working for a DAO and the steps that one would take if they wanted to work for a DAO and make it work. It sounds like a lot of interning at first, though.
Interning for what?
It sounds like a type of interning to get yourself established.
Oh, as working at a DAO, you mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's a really new concept, which is basically fire your boss. Everybody's in charge, and isn't it kind of like that sometimes when you work in a regular job? I mean, the boss tells you what you need, and then everybody just kind of figures it out anyway. It's just that damn hierarchical system seems to make some people more right than others, even when they're not right. So I think it's, if done right, can be something a bit more welcome, or it could be just a fad.
Well, you're going to have a hierarchy regardless, right? So in the DAO, there's going to be factions that are going to band together. They're going to wiggle into whatever.
Are factions really a hierarchy, though?
In a way, because if your faction's big enough, it'll dominate the other ones.
So you need to. So that's a good question, because that's how the world works. There's a lot of things in this world that we'd like to do different, but it really depends on who's in charge, what faction's in charge, and so on. And I think Americans have this illusion of freedom. I like to bust your butt on that whole illusion of freedom. Like when you told me the other day that you could spend your money however you want, I laughed at you.
It is an illusion for some things, for a lot of things.
Oh, for the things that they don't care about. I mean, if you're everything, anything you want to buy cigarettes, it's an illusion there too, because as long as you're buying from the right companies, the companies that they're regulating and the companies that are in charge, then you're fine. If you started buying cigarettes from another company, the wrong companies, or a different kind of cigarette, I don't know, like weed, then that's a whole new set of companies. And then, the traditional companies are going to have a problem with it.
Yeah, it's a system of politics and a system of favors and the regulation, the sharing of profits, and what's going to line whose pocket with how much. And
okay.
That's how everything kind of works. There's no doubt about it.
So is working at a DAO just going to be politics all the time? In order to get anything done, you're going to have to just push your idea across, and that's going to be hell. People hate politics. That's why most people, prefer the lower end jobs, because it's usually middle management that starts with all the politics, right?
Yeah, and it depends on the size of the organization too. If you have a very small DAO, I'm sure it wouldn't be anywhere near like a big DAO. And
you mean if you're not making a lot of money, that is.
Well, it depends, right? So there's a lot of people who want to have the feeling as though they have power, like a governance vote or something like that, but really don't want to. They want to just follow along and be a part of something bigger than they are. And if they see one group is kind of getting their way, one little faction there, they may just join that for the sake of joining that and being part of the popular crowd. The beauty in that, though, is that it can switch, and there can be ways of getting things changed a little bit differently, because unlike in politics where they're all getting paid by these corporations to just kind of push forward whatever the agenda that these corporations have. Nobody's getting paid outside of that DAO, or at least shouldn't be getting paid outside of the DAO, to have those influences pushing an agenda that's kind of crappy. I mean, I suppose you could have it, but it would be more difficult, I would imagine.
All right. I decided to share my screen with that article we were looking at.
Oh, cool.
Toss your job, make $300K working for a DAO.
It's a lot like an intern, right? It's kind of like being a partner in a law firm. So you do the grunt work for a long time, you get yourself a following, and then suddenly you end up with some power and some influence. And at that point, you can become a part of that DAO and take that governance to a different level. That's the way I understood what I was reading. Those layers, I wonder if they have some kind of, how do I want to put it? Some kind of privilege, maybe, that, what's the carrot? What's the carrot there to be part of a DAO leadership or working for a DAO? That's what I don't understand. Maybe you know more about that.
I think the carrot probably is to get around the existing ways of doing things. If you have a decentralized organization, it's hard for the feds to go after one specific person. And, if everybody wants it, then it must be okay. And then there's the concept that organizations take a lot of resources to run. You can have people join up and become part of the DAO to help you run things. I would say it's maybe a company with an ongoing venture capital kind of situation. I have a feeling that the whole concept is still sussing itself out. And this is where I was hoping to bring Nate Harper or Forged in Crypto in to get a sense of what he thought, because that's he's just announced the startup of a DAO recently.
Yeah, that's intriguing to me as well, because I've been flirting with trying to learn more about those, but of course it always falls further down on my radar because shiny things catch my attention more.
Now, there's a part that I'm leaving out, which is a lot of people like to mention the whole democratic aspect of it, which honestly, I doubt. I don't feel that DAOs are... well, let's just say as democratic as ancient Rome, because in ancient Rome, the landowners were the ones that voted, not the population. So, do we mean democracy, where each person gets a vote, or or do we mean the kind of classic traditional democracy, which is the more of a stake you have in something, the more votes you get? Well, my understanding is that a DAO is the bigger stake you have, the more votes you have. And it would depend on how your DAO is set up. But the whole goal is to get people involved and give each of those people a vote. I'm wondering how people are going to hack that concept, just like they hack companies. I mean, you can go in and 51% attack a company and then, get on its board and then have overriding vote power for all the decisions. Tell me that there's not a way in a DAO to do the same thing.
Well, it would depend on how it's set up, right? So you can set it up any way you want. And it could be one token is one vote, or however many tokens you have is that many votes. And I think people, if
you sell all your tokens to, I don't know, a rich person, then they control the vote. So you got rich and they have control, and they buy control for as long as they have it and need it and want it. They get what they want out of the DAO, then they sell their stuff out to somebody else who's left holding the bag. So, I mean, if you start going that way, you're going to have to get really creative about how your DAO runs.
And that's the danger. It works like any other. It turns into a centralized CAO at that point. No.
You mean like a business? Because businesses are the same way, or they are that way. So I'm curious how they run in practice, and what makes me worry is that it is a fad. You know, maybe 20 years from now, people say, well, for 10 years, people tried to make DAOs work, but then they always wound up going this direction. They always wound up getting some dude controlling the DAO. It was the dude who brought in the most work, or the dude who had the most money. You know, it's going to be somebody. Um, it was the dude who hacked their algo and got got the most coins. Then he drove it into the ground, or you know, the dude who bought them out, sold them to some such and such, sold them to big company. That's what. There's going to be a lot of politics. When you have mutual ownership of things, I mean, you're going to have a lot of politics. So is it really just saying, okay, get rid of your boss, and then you can pick up a lot more politics now? Sounds like more stress, not less.
Well, I think that's what we're all exploring together here. It makes me wonder. I think it would almost have to have that white paper kind of look to it, where they describe exactly how it's set up and who can obtain power over controlling votes and all that. I mean,
then it starts becoming about management of power. How is the power going to get managed? Okay, who's going to be able to retain their control, and how long can they retain it?
Well, how long do they want to retain it, right? So you can rug a DAO just like you can rug anything else.
Well, a DAO could self-rug itself.
It could do that too.
I mean, people right now, the reason they say most businesses fail in the United States is because people take businesses and intentionally rug the business so that the business can take the fall. It's not like they have a bad business plan. It's what can I do to absorb this loss? Oh, start a business. Oh, look, I just got some tax breaks for this. Woohoo!
Well, it depends also on what's invested in that DAO, right? So there's certain people that'll put more assets in there. I mean, is the goal of the DAO to get as many assets built up as possible for a specific reason? Like there was talk about a year ago with Gala and putting together a DAO to buy all the land up, or to buy a citadel or anything like that, or the
Citadel.
DAO could simply be
There's Citadel. A DAO would basically run the Citadel, and
right.
Because the Citadel is going to have, in the case of, if you're talking about Mirandus, Citadel is going to have a lot of shops in it, and you need people to run those shops. You're going to be charged. Everybody's going to be paying rent to somebody. If they're paying it to the DAO, maybe the DAO can encourage more players to come to that castle, Citadel. But then again, who's in charge of even that one? The guy with the most shops? I mean, so Ray Kroc, the guy who runs McDonald's, can own your town just by having most a franchise. Especially in the beginning of the game. I think after a while the game will mature and get around that. But I see lots of shenanigans where it's like, oh, well, okay, well, you can't do that. But if you're a member of the DAO, if you're a member of the DAO with the most Materium, you get more votes. Okay, well, then you're just going to go quickly. People are going to race to earn as much Materium as possible.
It's gonna be really interesting to see how the guilds and if there is DAOs, and I'm sure there'll be DAOs with guilds and guilds with DAOs, how that will play out, and if it will. Do you think it could destroy the fun of the game?
Okay, so that's another question. There's a lot of games out there with a lot of political intrigue, as it is. People like political intrigue. They will get in these online games just so that they can be in that kind of bullshit. Now, of course, they'll have their groups. Groups will start and form and fall apart and reform because people want different influences in the game. The difference is when you bring play to earn to it, Now it's real money. Real money means real intrigue, which means I not only hate Titan, I really fucking hate Titan. Titan just lost me $300,000, and I'm going to take his ass to court. Can DAO help me out with that?
Well, okay, so let me throw some additional context in there, right? So you have these and I'm just using Mirandus as an example because most people who listen to Faz Radio have some kind of association with Gala, right? So let's assume there's a DAO, right? And this DAO throws together a couple of villages, a couple of towns, and a ton of shops and everything else, right? And so this politics is playing out, and all these rich landowners are playing their politics. And here comes Herbert Schmeckel, who is a guy who works at the local gas station, and he wants to get in and grind his way up to do things. Are all these political shenanigans going to prevent or limit the fun that Herbert has when he joins the Mirandus world?
I would guess, and I'm going to use franchises here again, I guess it would be a lot like, I don't know, growing up and getting a job in the 1920s versus growing up and getting a job in the 2020s. The 2020s, you're probably going to work for, some conglomerate. Not so in the 1920s. I think at Mirandus at first, they're not going to have a lot of that stuff figured out. So Herbert Schmeckel might be able to, the name, Herbert might be able to go do just about anything. He could start his own store. He could work his way up to buying a second store, and then he can do some adventuring on the side, and he can get a lot done. That is until a bunch of groups, pay to earn player guilds, start coming up. And they did say in Mirandus that they're going to have support for guilds. So it might be that only guilds can get certain things. Or maybe that only guilds have the amount of money to buy certain things, like a cemetery, which is where you reincarnate. You're going to die in the game. You need to reincarnate. But, oh, shit. Fred Flintstone DAO, they happen to have all the cemeteries. You're going to have to work with Fred, period. That is until, the game goes further and further and further. And my question is, well, there's a couple of questions there. One, how is the developers of Mirandus going to deal with monopolies, guild monopolies? They're just going to invent something else, like a Quickie Mart kind of cemetery, to where it just works for a while, and that way you can counterbalance the Fred Flintstone cemetery conglomerate. So fun is very subjective. It could be fun. It could be fun just working around that kind of bullshit. But if you just want to just come and just play the game, you're not going to care who's running anything. It's like right now, if you want to buy a pair of glasses in the United States, you might not care who you get the glasses from until you realize that glasses are owned, basically monopolized by a single company in the world named Luxottica. Luxottica owns all the eyeglasses in the world. Well, like 99.9% of them. So you didn't have any problem buying eyeglasses before then, but if you know that it's a monopoly, now you kind of do have a problem with it. So Herbert Schmeckel probably wouldn't have a problem playing the game until he got dicked over the 50th time. Maybe he said the wrong thing in a DAO-owned tavern, and now he's not allowed in any tavern until he changes his ways. He can either change his ways or find another game. In which case, so let's hope that it doesn't become that unfun, but that's what it could be.
Well, that
if he started realizing that there was a monopoly on certain things, he might never even want to play the game. So I would think that you might not even want to advertise that you own half the land in the fucking game.
Well, and that I've talked about this, golly, going back almost a year, and you have to have a ton of grinders playing that game, right? You have to have a lot of new people in there. And if there are large entities like that are cornering markets on things and making things ridiculously expensive and making it too difficult for the people to grind their way to realistically at some point owning something of substance, meaning a homestead or anything like that, something close to it. Because we know that the history shows that, hey, these homesteads are worth 2 ETH, right? But if they release another one, they call it something different. Instead of a homestead, they call it a home track. They're going to price that in line, most likely, with the homesteads. So
well, now you're not talking about DAOs in this case. You're talking about the game makers.
So I think here's what I've noticed. This is something I was going to bring up the last time we talked about Mirandus, and I think we ran out of time. Everybody that talks Mirandus now, I think, is talking into a very, very boxed in room, because they're talking as though it's just going to be the people who own these NFTs today that they're going to be playing with. They can't run their operation, whatever their businesses are going to be, based on the other players who own it in the game. Because if they do, they will end up locking out the masses from adopting this game. And as you know, gamers talk like there's no tomorrow. And if it gets around that it's impossible, hey, I've been grinding for 9 months and I still can't even afford a basic NFT, or I can't play the game because the prices to rent a room to get sleep and recharge my character are out of my reach. That's a serious problem, because then if players aren't playing, all these people who own all the land and the shops, they're not going to get any new revenue, or as much as they could.
Well, it benefits the developer to make that possible. I don't think that that will be a problem. I think what will be the problem is certain things in the game might be unattainable or hard to attain. It was said with Mirandus that, if you're going to have a rare sword, the sword will indeed be rare. It's not that you get a rare class of sword or a rare type of sword where everybody can get this rare sword. It's going to be, there's only 3 of them. And the problem with that way of doing things is, guess who's going to own that sword? Probably a guild or a DAO that is a guild. If you'll be able to get a place to sleep, you'll have the ability to play, do just about everything you want in the game. But if you want to get that sword, good fucking luck.
Well, but do you see what I'm saying? That is going to be a turnoff to a tremendous amount of players.
Yeah. So I would bet that's where politics would come in there and would try to solve it. There are DAOs and player guilds right now forming to enable players to have more access. I know that John T. Gemini is very interested in making it so that the average player can get non-average things. And I know that the Players DAO, provisional name, that Nate Harper's been talking about, is trying to get players hooked up with NFTs. So there's going to be options out there, and just like Google and Facebook fight for your eyeballs, they give you lots of, Google gives you free email and free storage space and free plays, free music play, free music players, and they give you all sorts of free things because they want your eyeballs, and they want your eyeballs because they sell your data. Well, then there's the data that'll be sold in these games too. But I think guilds and DAOs, user group DAOs, will want to encourage players to be hooked up with NFTs. So I don't see that as being a problem. I don't think people will want to quit a game just because they can't get one of 3 magical swords. I think they'll just be pissed that a group or a DAO owns that sword. Maybe the group or the DAO makes it easy for you to get to, but if you have 3 swords, how is it going to be easy to get to if there's 100,000 people? What's it going to be, a lottery? I mean, what does easy to get to means? You're still not going to get the sword. If you have to wait and turn for 6 years to be able to use that sword, it's still a limited quantity. So I think there's going to be a game that everybody plays, and then there's going to be a game that big boys play, just like in real life. And so you're going to see DAOs and user groups doing all this palace intrigue, where, hey man, did you hear what happened to the Faz's Baron town? Oh my God, it's John now owns it. How'd he get it? I don't fucking know how he got it. He just got it. And Faz is all pissed too. It's like he didn't even want to sell it. Did he get threatened? What do you say on Faz Radio? There's going to be all sorts of people talking about shit like that. That in itself is a game.
It makes me worry though about the amount of players that need to be adopted to make this work, and these conglomerates, whether it's the Players DAO or whatever guild, John's, guild owning everything, that I think is still going to be another hoop somebody has to go with. And what if they just want to come in and play and do it on their own? Well, you have these huge conglomerates against one guy who is going to have a lot of difficulty continuing to enjoy the gameplay when all this intrigue is going on. That is a concern.
In the real world right now, if you wanted to buy yourself alcohol, cigarettes, sweets, weed, whatever, there's a store for you. You can go and spend your hard-earned $5 a day on any goddamn thing you want. What you don't know that's going on is what's going on behind the scenes. How did that weed shop get its zoning figured out? How did that grocery store score all that chocolate? Whatever, or that beer. Well, it used to be that back in the Midwest that grocery stores couldn't sell any alcohol on Sundays. Now they can. The Lord's Day. So, but now they can. So there's some backroom deals to enable that from happening. Enable that to happen. What if so the same thing? You're playing a game and you know that such and such town never has a tavern in it. All of a sudden it has a tavern. Well, it's kind of not up to you to care. You're just happy that there is one. I mean, aren't you happy when the new superhero movie comes out? It's like, yeah, they got my superhero out. He has his own movie. Yay. I hated the other superheroes. I like this one. You really don't care. You're just glad that somebody did it. So same thing. I mean, you're going to be like, hey, now if I become a member of this guild, every Thursday I'll be able to get to use one of their rare swords. That's cool. Otherwise you'll just never play with it, and you'll have fun doing other things in the game. Going, attacking Minotaur caves and killing Minotaurs and being resurrected in someone's cemetery that you have to pay. But at least there's a cemetery there. You don't care. You just want to play the game.
So, I'm big on perspectives, right? So let's take the table and turn the perspective around a little bit. How do you think Gala approaches what's happening with these guilds and these DAOs, and how that affects how they're going to attempt to balance that game? Do you think that they'll be working against or together with these DAOs?
Well, first of all, Gala has stated that they like the idea of of adding support for guilds into Mirandus and their other games. It's to their benefit and everyone's benefit if these games have guilds because it shows that there's enough interest in these games, or that there is a fair amount of interest in these games, and the guilds will help market these games. They'll try to get new members to set people up to play these games. So I think a game maker like Gala Games is going to love having DAOs and guilds and gaming groups playing their games. Why wouldn't they? If you're worried about them losing control, they can change the rules of this game at any time they want. If cemeteries are all off the market because some guild owns all the cemeteries, they can say, okay, guild, you either make these more available or we just invent a new kind of cemetery.
Well, I'm not. My question was more along the lines of, do you think it will be that head-to-head battle where Gala is trying to outwit or outsmart the DAOs, or do you think that the Gala will work with those DAOs to try and, you mentioned support, but not so much support the DAO or the guild, but do you think they'll be supporting the new players coming in, or do you think they'll be supporting the DAOs?
Both. I think it would be in Gala's best interest to get a user set up and playing the game and into having fun as quickly as possible. As far as a DAO or a gaming group helping with the game, they're going to probably try to address something that Gala Games is not currently doing. If Gala Games starts doing it, then they'll just address another area. I don't know, maybe you need a vehicle in that game, and Gala doesn't give you a vehicle right away. Then the DAO would provide that vehicle. So the DAOs are definitely the gaming DAOs that we're talking about. DAOs and gaming groups are definitely going to be wanting to fill whatever hole is in Gala Games' approach at starting users out.
There's a lot of these questions that, I've been thinking about lately. I'm watching, and I saw you make a couple of comments on the gaming side of things lately on Twitter and in Discord. It's kind of changing. This whole play to earn thing is going out the window. Nobody knows if it's going to work. The play to own, how this is all going to shape up. And I wonder if having that real money being spent and being earned one way or another is going to end up being the sticking point why these things don't take off. How do I describe it? So we've had the discussion about traditional gamers, and they don't like it because of that way to buy yourself to the top almost instantly.
Yeah, it's called pay to win.
Well, yeah. So you have that aspect of it. Plus, the other side of that, the second biggest on that pie chart that we posted that day, was what they don't want is the distraction of earnings, right? And this ties right into Gala's biggest problem, the Roy boys, right? So it takes the fun away from the game and focuses it on the money. So there's like these huge hurdles, the adoption, the different style of gameplay, the money aspect of it. Do you think that a really good game could possibly be held back from being a complete and awesome success because traditional gamers just won't play it?
Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of gamers out there, and when you say traditional gamers won't play it, gamers of a certain age might not play a game because they dislike how the company is doing things. A lot of people don't like Electronic Arts, for example. Are there millions of people, millions of other people that play the games. Yeah, your mother-in-law plays. You might play her Donkey Kong game and enjoys it thoroughly. She's not going to give a shit what people think about Electronic Arts. If you're there are billions of people in this world. You can certainly have a game that has a bad rap. If it makes mainstream television or something, like, these people are real asshats, then yeah, I could see it. But I mean, if you're a gamer, you could certainly be picky. But I don't think that all the consumers of the games are going to be able to get on the same page. That said, Gala Games working with gaming groups, that's a good idea, because now you have people that can help them out. They could say, hey, gaming groups, tell us what the biggest beef that your players have. Well, that's good. You can get people to give you feedback right away. They could do it themselves, or they can ask these gaming groups to help them. So as far as pay to win, that has been a problem for at least the last 10, 15 years due to realities of games. It costs money to make these games. This is not like the 1980s where you can go buy yourself an Atari cartridge for $20, $30, or $40. And then you play the cartridge and you're like, wow, that one was real good. Okay, well, let's go get another one. The biggest problem that Atari games had was trying to top their previous. How do you top Pac-Man? Miss Pac-Man? Well, actually, Miss Pac-Man was not made by the people who made Pac-Man. They were made by a totally different company who modify Pac-Man boards, and then of course that company bought them. But if you only have a brand that consists of a single game, you're going to have a hard time. That's what I like about Gala Games' approach. They have a number of different games. But if you're talking about how a game can become more popular, or if you're worried about its popularity, every game is having. Oh, I lost my train of thought there. Every game is going to have this problem. It costs money to make these games. It costs hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars to make a good, expansive game that people will enjoy and play for a long time. You can't just sell a game for $50 or $100 and pay for the game. It's going to run out as your audience discovers it. And somebody, I mean, if you buy a game and you hold it for 9 years and you play it for 9 years, what, you want more stuff in that game? They're going to make it for free? No, things cost money. So that's why you get all this downloadable content. You get all these things in the game that you can buy. You got all these stupid hats and other crap that they sell you, because they're just trying to get the money to make more of the game, or continue fleshing out the game. As far as how good the game is or how good that they flesh it out, that's up to them. But that's a different problem. But these things still cost money. So to me, pay to win is really just pay to keep your game around.
So I wanted to ask this on the last DAO cast that we did. And again, we kind of ran out of time.
Save that for the DAO cast, sir. But okay, go ahead.
No. Well, I'll ask you this, and if Nate joins us either tonight or another night, I'll try and remember to bring it up. Because I was trying to tie it all back in, and then I went a little off track and had you answering goofy questions for that. But for you, right? What is attractive about a DAO to you over just playing a game?
Well, okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about a DAO that's dedicated for gamers?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going to take that, because of the players DAO, right?
Okay.
So why? Why would you be interested in doing something like that?
Well, a gaming DAO, just by its definition, would probably make it so it's easier for you to do things when you're gaming. If you want to join a DAO, maybe you'd like to either help provide or help profit from that kind of thing. You want more things in the game, maybe you can rent it from the DAO. And if you want to be able to rent that magic sword, and you know that this DAO has it, you can rent it from the DAO. You'd have to join their little group, and then you'd maybe even be part of it. You could make use of that sword. Maybe then you could then find and create and craft more things in the game and provide back to the DAO and improve their offerings to everyone else.
Does one have to choose a DAO, or can they be a part of 4 different gaming DAOs?
But I think you're presupposing a specific way that these things are going to be set up. I'm
asking questions. I'm trying to learn about these DAOs, especially this players DAO.
Well, there's DeFi DAOs, there's crypto DAOs, there's coins, and of course gaming kind of DAOs. I mean, you can just call them corporations. You could have a corporation that does DeFi, or a corporation that does gaming. You could join a corporation, or not join, but you can get an account at a corporate website that is geared toward getting you the NFT that you want, and you can rent it, and you know that paying that corporation would make sure that you get it in the future. A lot of people have their favorite companies that they like to buy things from, and they'll even pay more for these companies. I mean, like Nike or Nike shoes or I don't know, whatever. You like those shoes, you only buy Nikes because you love Nike, or maybe you like a boutique shoe company, and you only buy from that boutique shoe company. You're supporting that company. So
no, I get that part, but like if I were to join 4 different DAOs that's in that gaming space, how does that look to the DAO? I mean, is that,
I think you have 4 different opportunities to rent stuff. That'd be awesome. It's a good idea. Join 4 different DAOs.
Okay.
I mean, unless the DAO has rules saying if you join us, you can't play with other DAOs or something. This is how we make things exclusive. But
well, that's what I was getting at. So, because they're decentralized, okay, and again, I don't want to start an argument on decentralization, but because they're decentralized like that, is that the right thing to do, to limit people to one DAO? Or to me, that's very centralized if you're going to ask people to only provide loyalty to one DAO.
Well, I just gave that as a possibility. I have no idea. I mean, it wouldn't seem to me that being a member of a specific DAO would prevent you from being a member of another DAO. That's like saying if you're a member of one company, you're not allowed to be a member of another. Well, companies do that. They do that with their competitors. If the DAO felt like it had a competitor, that if you joined them, that would be a problem, then they might give you that choice.
Interesting.
A DAO is just a new type of company that's been formalized the last few years. And I think the state of Wyoming is one of the first states to support that new type of company.
Wyoming is huge on crypto. They're trying to be the crypto state. They have a couple of banks. I think Kraken opened their Kraken Bank, or is in process of opening their Kraken Bank there. Very, very crypto friendly.
So because it's a new type of company, who knows how this new type of company is going to govern it, or how it's going to work. It might be that DAOs work a certain way for a while until it's determined that doesn't work, and then you see all of a sudden all the DAOs are switching to another way of doing things. The fact that you mentioned joining multiple DAOs being a problem, I would think if
I was asking, I wasn't saying it's a problem. I'm asking, is that something that from your experience at least, would that be a problem?
if your DAO depended upon secrecy and you chose to share those secrets with multiple DAOs, maybe that's a problem. As far as DAOs being a member of multiple DAOs, period, my understanding is that there are a number of people that are members of hundreds of DAOs at once. So it
Right.
might not be a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to learn this because it's really interesting what I heard on the last DAOcast there. I mean, this being so new and it's kind of exciting. Could a DAO, let's say there's, you have this core group of DAO people, and the DAO opens up to the masses and the masses come flooding in. Could they rally troops together to get to vote on governance to close the DAO?
I would personally say a DAO is like any other company. It just has a different structure in it. A DAO could do anything that any company could decide. So if a company wants to dissolve itself for whatever reason, so could a DAO.
But could the members of the DAO force the DAO to close if they had enough votes? That is,
if their voting structure allowed that, why not?
I kind of like this DAO thing. It sounds like it could be a lot of fun.
Well, the DAO concept, like I said, it's a concept. It's not a specific business set of rules. I mean, each DAO would have its own rules. You could have your DAO only allow Miranda's players. Call it the Miranda's DAO. Could this DAO ever change its rules to allow Townstar players? Maybe so. I mean, it's up to them.
That's kind of cool. Have we DAO'd ourselves to death here?
Are we well endowed, do you mean?
See, I told you about them dad jokes.
I think you just want more dad jokes so you can feel good about yourself.
I tell dad jokes at work all day long, and they love it. Those youngsters, they get a kick out of that.
Mm-hmm. That's what all dads think.
They laugh. I don't know if they're laughing at me or with me.
Out of pity. Yeah, that's okay. So let's move on to another subject, because
yes,
you wanted to say, I had a couple things I wanted to talk about, but you mentioned something about Ledger.
Yes, and I will try and be brief, but I'll probably trigger you. and well, no, it won't be a trigger like a bad thing, but I have a feeling you'll have a lot to say about this.
You'll get me to share a piece of my mind.
Yeah. So I just listened to a podcast today, okay? And in that podcast, they were talking, and I want to get his name right. I left myself a note.
Would it be Pascal Gauthier?
Gauthier, yes, Pascal Gauthier. He is the CEO of Ledger, okay? The hardware wallet. And he was talking, and the conversation suddenly took a very alarming turn. And he made some assertions, and he says it's on Ledger, the Ledger site, the documentation about it, that basically, and again, it could be self-serving because he's the CEO of Ledger, but he alleges that no phone right now is safe from having anybody using a 0-day exploit be able to take everything, every piece of crypto that they own off of their phone. And this conversation was alarming in several aspects. He he says that they show how you can basically buy these. It's open source code that you can go to GitHub and get. And basically, if I were to send you a text message, you wouldn't even have to open it, click a link, do anything. I instantly have access to your phone. And I can get I can open up your MetaMask, I can take your private keys, and I can go drain your wallet. And he said this is true of Apple, this is true of Android, this is true of every mobile maker out there. And he said that there is not a lot of awareness around that. They're looking right now, the next iteration of Ledger, what he said, is not going to be a hardware wallet, in theory. It's going to be baked into the cell phones. It is going to be part of the chipset. It'll be integrated into the system so that nobody can use anything to crack the encryption to get into that phone. He said, and therein lies the problem, because he said if companies like Apple or Microsoft or any of these companies who run the software don't allow the hardware level to be bumped into security, all they're doing is leaving a giant hole for everybody to get their wallets drained.
Okay, let's stop while you're ahead here, because you got a lot here.
I know it was a lot, but I know you didn't read the article, so I wanted to give you as much context as I could.
So I get the sense, actually, what they're talking about is maybe a MetaMask wallet on your phone, correct?
He said any wallet that's not protected by a hardware wallet.
Right.
It could be Trust Wallet, it could be MetaMask, it could be anything.
So he might be talking, he might be mentioning that phones are extremely hackable, and no matter what you get with a hardware wallet, that just the phones, by their very design and the way the operating systems have sussed out and stuff, that they're extremely hackable. That's probably a valid point. Just, I would like to say that I've never, ever, ever, ever put a MetaMask on my phone. I did... but not for that reason. I figured my phone could be stolen, and then I didn't want somebody to be able to get into it. And I've only really ever used hardware wallets like Ledger. So the thing about what makes Ledger so secure, or a hardware wallet so secure, is a hardware wallet is really just a computer that serves up a crypto key that's designed to be hacked, or designed to resist or just not be hacked. It's designed to do one thing and do that thing securely. You can't do any other tricks to get around it. There's only one way in and one way out. And in the case of a lot of hardware wallets, it's just the screen. If you see it on the screen, whatever the screen shows. You can put that separate computer inside of a phone. As long as it, has a separate place on the motherboard and stuff like that, it could be a separate computer. So you could have your Ledger on the phone. Preferably, that Ledger should have its own screen, because the phone in and of itself could be programmed to lie, or could be hacked and lie about what the Ledger's actually telling you, thus making the Ledger kind of useless.
That's why I was so long-winded. That's what I was trying to explain. The way that he's describing it, they're developing basically an addition to the chipset of the phone, which will give not only the software for the phone, whether it be Android or iOS, to use the same Ledger security so it can't be cracked, or I should say, integrating the hardware wallet for crypto into that chipset. So it's all one big giant, your phone is basically a giant ledger itself.
So I actually heard about something like this being done by Samsung years ago, back in 2018. Let's see, Samsung hardware wallet.
That's the Knox. That's the Knox system that they have.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that I told you I had the first Galaxy phone. They called it the Samsung Fascinate, and that was where I learned how to wipe the phone and install custom ROMs and how to do the coding around that stuff. So I did learn that. And once Knox came out, I read extensively about that because it made it extraordinarily difficult to root the phone and to put custom ROMs onto it. So that's when I migrated away from Samsung. Now, I love the security, don't get me wrong, but I enjoyed the customization far better. So I did move away at that point. But that Knox system is kind of the same thing that Pascal was talking about on there. It'll be literally baked into the hardware so that not only is the phone secure, but the wallet adds an additional layer of security using that first layer to help buffer the second. The host of the podcast was just blown away because he had no idea how easy it was. And he says, I can literally, in less than 30 seconds, be in your phone if I really wanted to. You can put passwords, you can put your Face ID, you can do whatever you want, does not matter. All I have to do is send you a text message. You don't even have to open it. That's why that big Apple thing happened a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you remember from the Gala Discord. It's called a 0-day exploit. And some are worse than others.
Right.
But it basically, you don't have to do anything. You just have to, because you have a phone number, if I send you a text, it could sit, you could delete it, you can not read it. It does not matter. I am literally in your phone the instant that text message hits your phone. And that was just, I was floored.
Right. A 0-day exploit is a type of attack. Just to let you know, it's not that's the attack, but it's a type of attack.
Well, yeah. So that just, and he goes, we document it on Ledger. It's not like this is hidden. And I'm like, what? I haven't circled back to that because I've been busy until we got on Faz Radio. But that's where they're going with this, and the security. So when I made my comment a couple of weeks ago about, it's probably, the vast majority of people just being stupid. Now I've got to eat my hat on that one, because if it's that easy as Pascal is saying it is, I mean, geez, anybody can be exploited almost instantly.
Well, any crypto stuff that you keep on your phone, yes. If you have a hardware wallet that's somehow associated with your phone, well, you'll still need to get the information from your hardware wallet to your phone.
Well, that's where the Nano X comes in with the Bluetooth. You can hook up your MetaMask, via Bluetooth to your phone.
And so basically the reason that these hardware wallets have their own separate screens is because they know that their screen can't get hacked, but the phone can. So if you were to, I don't know, send some crypto to Faz and say, okay, well, I know that this is Faz's wallet. Okay, here we go. I'm going to send it. And then your hardware wallet says this is going to Faz wallet. The phone might say it's going to Faz's wallet too, but it's going to go someplace else instead. Well, the hardware wallet and the phone have to agree. So that's when you'd come in and you'd say, okay, I see this on the phone. I see this on the hardware wallet. It can go out. But if they're trying to get you to send it somewhere else, like I'm going to send it to Titan's wallet, but I'm going to show Faz's wallet, the hardware wallet is going to show Titan's wallet address. And then that's where you're going to catch it, because you got to approve it on the hardware. I'm curious how they might integrate those two separate computers into a single phone if you're using the same buttons to work them both.
Yeah, he was pretty excited about that, and he says it's a year or two out before they'll be able to offer that. And he said it'll be difficult to get the phone companies to agree to that.
Well, because you're
Um,
you're going to have to ask the phone to put something in the phone that they themselves cannot defeat.
right, and that opened up another big can of worms. So
Yeah,
uh,
can you so then of course the next thing they'll want to know is, okay, well, I would like to look at this software. I'd like the key to the software so that I'd be able to test everything on it. Well, you can't. Not with a ledger. If you stamp a ledger into a phone, then a ledger's got to be a ledger, which means they can't control it. Okay. Um, maybe they'll have to get some other assurance, like come to our factory and see how we make them.
yeah, I don't know, but I thought that was fascinating, and I thought, first of all, this is fantastic for security, but B, getting these phone companies, especially an Apple, who prides themselves on their own security, buying into that's going to be a very hard sell. So now that the cat's out of the bag, and Pascal is really pushing hard for this, and people are learning about this, and the public pressure will be there to do it, how's that going to play out?
Who's this guy again? Nobody knows what the fuck a ledger nano is.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
it's the ordinary everyday person doesn't know what a crypto wallet is. I do keep reading though that 60% of the people in the United States have crypto, but somehow I doubt that. Maybe most of them have a Coinbase account. I don't think 60% of the people in the United States know what the hell a ledger nano is or a hardware wallet.
I think they're doing fuzzy math.
Or they're doing
meaning
network TV
they're
math.
Well, right, to where they say, okay, well, there's X number of addresses, so each person has an address, and that equals 60%. Well, I mean, personally, I think I have probably a good 50 or 60 addresses. So that kind of shoots that.
Just try doing
down.
your crypto taxes one year, and you'll find out how many addresses you have.
Right. So I'm wondering if they're not using that as just fuzzy math to claim that 60%, because I don't buy that either. I think it's more like 15 to 20%.
15 max. I mean, it's every single person I know, other than crypto people, which basically is my family and all the friends I grew up with and stuff like that. I think I'm the only one that has a hardware wallet, and I think one or two of them have a Coinbase account. And I have an average number of friends, which is about 200 people. By the time they get to my age, they have at least 200 acquaintances and friends. Most people are like, crypto's a scam. They still, that's what the government is depending on. That's why whenever you hear them in congressional hearings, like Jamie Dimon, Jamie Dimon, was that a dad joke? Jamie Dimon in Congress, where he was just railing on Bitcoin by saying it was a Ponzi, it was this, it was that. He's saying the same thing that my friends are. And what? Do they all know something that I don't know? I've learned more about banking in the years that I've gotten into crypto than I've ever known for my entire life, and I'm 50 now. So I've learned more about banking in just the last few years than I've ever known. And I'm having a hard time believing that my friends would know that much about banking, because if they did know as much about banking as I've learned, they would be livid at how fucked they were by fiat money. Forget crypto, whether crypto is better or not. It's just knowing the level of fucked you are with crypto, with fiat money is just unbelievable. So don't tell me that method is better than crypto. Crypto just needs adoption. Okay, if it doesn't get adoption, you're still fucked with fiat. And now you're going to say crypto is worse? Oh, come on. It's new. That's the worst you can say.
I think so. I think the adoption is becoming easier now that it's like being talked about so much. I don't think there's any going back. I think it'll just be slow.
Yeah, I think I think crypto is a lot like the steam engine. You're not gonna the steam engine isn't going to get uninvented. It's just going to take a while before it actually gets in use.
Agreed. What other topics did you have? That's all I wanted to say. That blew my mind, that podcast today.
We've been talking for an hour and a half.
Have we really? Holy cow! Well, you've been gone all week, so we haven't had a chance to talk. So we've been running at the yips here.
Some things I also wanted to talk about, which I probably won't.
We could always do another one tomorrow or something.
Maybe XRP finally going up.
And,
some thoughts about the ETH merge, but the ETH merge needs to be tomorrow at least. We'll just talk about XRP. That's the coin I started with and my favorite coin. Basically, what's that? Both Ripple and the SEC have filed their motions for summary judgment or for final judgment or whatever, just kind of hurry things up a little bit. And the SEC's case boiled down to but Ripple did something wrong. They told people that they would make money, and Ripple hit below the belt. Basically, they went and cited chapter and verse on how all the laws worked, all the securities laws were imagined, how they were designed, what the fuck a security was, how securities work, and so one of them looks like somebody writing in crayon, and the other one, the Ripple's response looks like something you'd bring to the Supreme Court. Very well done and very well researched. And it's becoming very clear, even to the stupid people out there, that the SEC might not gonna win this one.
So there was a big debate on that I probably scrolled. It was on Twitter, and I probably scrolled through 200 to 300 responses to that very question, arguing settlement versus outright loss. And the prevailing wisdom of crypto Twitter, and you can define that and look at that and judge it however you want, was that the whole point of this was to get to a conclusion, and there will not be a settlement, even if the SEC acknowledges that it's not a security.
Well, Ripple's intention is to get a conclusion that they can have a fucking business. All they want is just to have a business going forward. And so they want some sort of conclusion, and they have the money and they have the talent to be able to drag this case on for as long as possible. The SEC has always been just pushing for time, waiting for the government, they're just pushing for time so they can get their government shenanigans in place to either slow down or stop XRP. So
I did read that NetBurn could take up to 9 months to make a decision. Do you think she'll wait that long?
Oh, I don't have any knowledge about that. I'm not really a lawyer.
She seems to be really, just from what I've read on this over time, she really seems to be no nonsense and hasn't bought the SEC's bullshit and has ruled on things fairly quickly.
Well, the SEC just happens to have been contradictory in a lot of the stuff it says. They're arguing in bad faith. They're not even they're not they're not really acting very serious about this. They're making it very obvious that they're pushing for time and that they're running out every clock they can. They know they've lost. So I don't know. I don't know how judges work or why she might what she might do. All I know is that it's obvious that the SEC has lost, and they're just my thought is the SEC, as soon as they lose, they're the very same day or the next day they're going to appeal it up to another level. maybe Judge Netburn wants to make things more appeal proof.
It could be. I would hope so. I don't want to see this drag out any further because
they do.
Well, yeah, but I mean that clarity will be crystal clear if they lose this case, and people will go.
I caution against saying words like that. Who knows? I think they will get as little clarity as possible, and Ripple will get as much clarity as they can. I mean, it could end up being mixed. It could be, well, Ripple got a win and the SEC got to hide some more information.
Well, they obviously are hiding a lot.
Well, they're afraid that if people saw how they deliberated the XRP stuff, that, well, they're afraid of not being able to control things. So that's why they don't want to share any of all their deliberations, the emails and stuff like that. Then they can't control.
Yeah, it gives people a clue. Well, yeah, it gives people a clue on how to avoid it.
Well, yeah. So I don't know what the judge would do, but I think the SEC is going to get as much currency and as much time as they can. And if they lose this, then they're just going to just fold it into something else and, make that take a long time.
Yikes.
Anyway, so that's anyway. So people seem to be starting to see through the SEC's bullshit. I think that's why XRP is going up. But then again, it could be one of those things where somebody pumps the price because they know that people are paying attention to XRP.
I think it's because with those settlement briefs filed, there is a window now where there will be a decision, whereas before there wasn't. And I think most people think along your lines, saying, the SEC screwed themselves completely, and it's going to be very, very, very difficult for the SEC to pull any type of even close to a win, even partially, out of this.
Oh, it's there. I'm sure that they'll be able to save face somehow. You things are lost when they start calling Ripple the evil empire or something like that. Once they start losing, the gloves will come off. Once they really start losing control, the gloves will come off. It'll be a political subject. Crypto will become political, just like everything else has become political. And then the court of public opinion will have to suss through it. Crypto hasn't gotten overly political yet. It's somewhat political, but it's as soon as it shows up in a presidential race, then the gloves have come off. When both sides are carefully weighing their responses to it.
I think that's sooner rather than later.
And in fact, I predict the Republicans who while Trump was in office were against crypto. The Republicans are now going to be for crypto. Why? Well, they are. They've already been saying that, and that's because the Democrats are not for crypto. And so the Democrats are now trying to make it seem a little bit vague, like, well, we're just trying to approach this, smartly. We want to make sure nobody gets hurt. And so I think the Republicans are going to go full-throated crypto all the way, and Democrats are then going to have to simplify their message to no crypto, no way. I predict that'll be what happens. And if I'm wrong, oh well. Points don't matter.
Cool. That's all I had. Since we're going so long here, we should probably save something for a second show.
That's right. All right. I'm getting tired. Yes, Demology. 90% of people are definitely not financial literate. 100% agree with that. Once you become financial literate, then you become pissed.
Well, you start to see how it works. And once the as you always say, the man behind the curtain pops out, oh my goodness, people go, what in the hell have I been thinking for the past 20 years?
Oh, no. Most people don't like to know that didn't Mark Twain say that people are more in, people don't like to know that they've been fooled. I forgot the quote now. Never mind.
Well, either way, Herbert Schmeckel is going to win.
Oh, it's easier to fool someone than it is to convince them that they've been fooled. A lot of people don't come out and say, "Oh my God, I was fooled for so long." No, they'll just come up with some other reason to why they weren't fooled. And if for some reason they were fooled, it's because, I don't know, some side was trying to fool them. Well, I'm sorry to break it to you, but that side was about 100 or so years ago, and it was our own fiat money system. Well, our own monetary system, our fiat monetary system in the United States came about in 1971, or was it 73? One of those two.
But that was supposed to be temporary too.
Was it? Is that what Nixon said?
Yep, Nixon was calling for a temporary, which of course is still temporary today.
Well, haven't a lot of other countries gone to the fiat system now too?
Yes, and I think now I am not an expert, but I did ask the question when we had a guest on, and I did ask that question. I asked, is that what this Bretton Woods and Brexit and all that kind of stuff is getting that backing back to it, and I guess that does fold into it. So that is a highly contentious subject, because you do have that monetary policy. Even if they were to say, okay, like today, right? They go, okay, they come out and say, we are backing the US dollar with gold again. Well, gold is not as scarce as people would think. Gold is only as scarce as fast as it can come out of the ground. And they can bring it out of the ground a lot faster than they make you believe they can.
Well, I know diamonds aren't scarce. Diamonds have been owned by, pretty much monopolized by the De Beers company for about 100 years. As far as gold, I mean, the entire inside of the planet Earth could be made of gold. We wouldn't know it. But yeah, it's the gold scarcity really has a lot to do with how quickly we can get it out of the ground, and it makes itself around the world.
And they hold that back. I mean, XRP Detroit makes a really good point. Rome was the collapse of the first fiat system. And so if you look back into history, there's ebb and flow, and there's waves that
Rome
you
had
can
a fiat
definitely
system?
see.
I didn't know Rome
It was a type of fiat system. Yes, it wasn't directly fiat like it is today, but it was very similar to the system that we have today. So when you look at these cycles of these empires collapsing, and you dig into the why behind the why, the vast majority of cases, the first thing that failed was whatever currency system that empire had began to fail.
The empires also had multiple currency systems too.
Well,
every Roman
sort of.
every Roman Caesar, every Roman king had had their own coins with their own head on it. They alternately bankrupted the treasury, and then they went and knocked over other countries to take their money so they can get their money back. And my understanding was that it wasn't exactly fiat based, or if it wasn't for long.
It was fiat like. They changed the dynamic to whatever suited them. So if you remember back to those, let's use Rome. Let's use the Roman coins, right? So it started to where they would dilute that copper coin. Instead of being 100% copper, then it was 90% copper, and they'd put a filler material in there. The gold coins would degrade from 99% gold to, by the time it was done, half gold. And then they took it a step further and they started putting creases in that money to where you could break off a piece of that money that was already diluted and use just a portion of that, because the portion, as long as it had the part of the official seal on it, it was recognized as money. So the fiat system is basically just creating money out of thin air. So did they, in fact, create money out of thin air by diluting the precious metal that was in there, by creating ways to break that money apart? Absolutely. And if whatever Caesar or whatever leader for whatever empire you want to talk about wanted to create more wealth for themselves, they just printed more money. They made more of that money, which the people out back then didn't realize what the effect of that would be.
You mean like people now, where this is what really got me during COVID. I'm sure other countries did it too, but I know that the U.S. government printed trillions upon trillions of dollars. And they actually did it for some fairly good reasons. They didn't want the banking system to collapse. Okay, but then they basically did the nuclear option. They printed up all that stuff, and the banking system didn't collapse. However, now they have to pay it all back. I think the federal government right now, since it's the other party that's in power, is trying to fix, or rather unfuck, which has been fucked. But I mean, they're still going to irresponsibly deal with the money. They're still gonna fuck it over. It's still gonna get inflated, and it's still gonna get replaced, and eventually something else has got to change. But they want to make sure that they are the ones in charge doing that. They don't want people.
It's the central bank, right? So the way that money is created is that the U.S. government goes to the central bank and says, I want to print $1 trillion. And in return, we're gonna hand the central bank 1 trillion U.S. bonds, treasury bonds. And that is the exchange of the money and how that money is created. So then the central bank goes out and it sells these treasuries to get some of that money back. That's the collateral for that transaction. And the problem is that people are getting wrecked in these treasury bonds. Nobody wants them at 2% interest. Are you crazy? No one's going to buy those things. And it just so happens that this is where you get into that deeper economics, right? Because China comes in and swoops in and does the exact same type of exchange with a different central bank that then converts the yuan into those bonds, which then creates the bonds that go back to the U.S., and now you have two sets of entirely different bonds. And so when you hear about that threat of China calling in those bonds and wrecking the U.S. economy because they own hundreds of billions, if not trillions, in those bonds, if they call those bonds back in, this chain effect takes place and the central bank ends up with nothing. And who do you think they're going to come knocking on the door to? It's not going to be China.
China, first of all, China can't call in those bonds. And what you just described...
Oh, they can.
What you've just described is the equivalent of a Mexican standoff. No, you're going to kill yourself if you try to call that in. I'm sorry. China's not going to win if they, quote, call anything in. The United States can simply cite national security and not pay it. I mean, come on. Give me a break.
Well, I didn't say they would win. I just said they could cause some serious problems, because all of this is based on, again, back to the words right on the money, the faith and credit of the United States government. And really all that means is a promise from the politicians that you can hardly believe what comes out of their mouth on a regular basis anyway. So that creates a big problem. Whereas your tokens and your coins, there's tangible things that you can point to that show the value of that, and it takes it away from that. No bonds have to be issued for that. Deep economics. We need an economics channel because I don't think people understand that. No, I was just taking a breather because I was running at the yip for quite a while there.
Well, we've been trying to end this for quite a while, so we should just go ahead and end it.
Yeah, we always do this. We say we're going to end it, and then we talk for like 20 minutes.
It's like when you're at work and you've been talking in front of the water cooler for quite a while now, and you're like, okay, I got to get back to work. And then you talk about something else, and then you're still out there, but there's no boss to stop us. So
that's cool. That's cool. It's all good. I think people, there's probably a lot of people who are crypto wizards and just so smart with this stuff that still don't understand how money works and how economies are created, and doesn't understand, like XRP was talking about, with the history of money and how that all came about.
It's becoming apparent that even economists don't know how money works. They understand on one level how money works, but because we're so separated, because fiat separates you so much from the actual economics of how money is created, it's hard to even include that. You always just talk about the result of money being created. My understanding is that fiat money is created by loans from banks. When a bank loans you money, they've created that money. And then as you pay that, and so that gives them an ability to pull money from you. Now, that's not real money. That's temporary money. Because when you pay off the loan, the money disappears like into a puff of logic. But you paid interest on that loan. That's real money. That's the actual money created because you gave real money to that bank. Where'd that money come from? I mean, and so you get this endless set of loops. Where did this money come from? Where did that money come from?
There's multiple ways to create money. It's not just one way through a central bank. There's a variety of ways that money is created.
Well, it's a really deep subject, but if you start talking about what people think is money, when a bank creates a loan, people think, oh, that's real money. No, it's not. They were just empowered to just lie. And the banks don't actually have the money that they loan you. Come on. They just get it from other people.
No. What they do is they go within the rules of the system. They can go 12 times the amount of deposits they have, which is why banks require direct deposit, because when all these people, millions of people go out and they do their direct deposit, those show as credits to the bank, which then they can loan out 12 times that amount on a regular basis. That's their reserve. That's what creates that reserve. That's the whole reason they make that direct deposit a mandatory thing. That is what gives them the power to create as much new money as possible.
Can you explain? Once you're done with that, I'm curious about something.
Oh, no, it's called fractional reserve banking, right? So we'll use nice, easy numbers.
Add to that rehypothecation. Can you explain that one?
Yeah, I can explain that. It'll take a while. So I'll give you the short version. So there's 2 layers, and actually there's about 6 layers, but we'll hit those 2 layers. So let's just say a nice big company like Tesla, and let's say they have their own credit union to make things simple. And they have, to be a member of that credit union, you have to direct deposit your paycheck on a weekly basis to that credit union. So they get $3 million every Friday, right? So they can, that credit union then has $3 million worth of deposits that week. So for the next week, they can loan out up to $36 million, 12 times the amount that you have in deposits. So all the home loans, auto loans, everything, CD, interest rates, the whole 9 yards that they pull out of nothing is that imaginary amount, right? And so once they do that, that also shows up as a credit, right? So then that credit, they take the rehypothecation, and I always have a hard time saying that word, not because I'm drinking.
Rehypothecation, like as in hypothesis,
Rehypothecation,
as in not real. Go ahead.
Yeah. They then take those excess reserve dollars and that fake made up money, and they sell that to another bank, who then takes that phantom money and applies that to their balance sheet, which then creates more money, and they pay an interest rate to the first bank for that, which then that interest rate comes back to the bank in the form of a new deposit, which means they can then take and layer up another 12 times that interest that they get back. And when you're talking
12
about
12 times the first time and then 12 times the second
12
time?
times the second time, right? So you're talking about, and this isn't like,
Sounds
50
like a
bucks.
fucking mob, man. Okay, by the way, if any of you guys lost track, you can just rewind and go back and listen to that.
Well, I'm serious. And this is why you look on Twitter, or you look anywhere else, or you listen to people that are really smart, they'll say it's a Ponzi scheme. And that's exactly why it's a Ponzi scheme. They literally just shuffle deposits, credits, and debits back and forth amongst themselves. And then we're not even talking about the layer with the Fed funds rate, right? So where they borrow from the Federal Reserve to make sure their minimums are met, and they're able to keep enough in reserve to keep the loans out. That's what happened in 2008, is they loaned out so much money, especially to these homes, that they had to borrow from the Fed to keep their reserves at a level to keep that 12 times amount right there. And they couldn't do it, and everything collapsed. And all that whole pyramid of the rehypothecation, I'm never going to say that right. Yeah. All of that just collapsed upon itself. And it seems to follow about a 20-year cycle. All right. If you look back in history, when there was these huge financial collapses, it's about every 20 years that happens. It never ends, and it goes back as far as you can think.
And what they're trying to do now is do that with Bitcoin. It's kind of funny because you can rehypothecate actual assets just as well as you could do the made up bullshit. The made up bullshit is a bit more of a stretch. It's actually easier to understand rehypothecating Bitcoin because you have an absolute limit at the bottom somewhere. But then again, can't you just, using existing rules, just invent Bitcoin too, if you're a bank?
Well, that's a huge can of worms, because exchanges are being accused of that now, not actually having the Bitcoin to sell you. They sell you phantom Bitcoin, hoping you're not going to pull it out. But you have another interesting dichotomy here. All right. So you have like we've talked about this before. You notice that these banks don't have the authority or the license or whatever term you want to call it to custody crypto. This is one of the biggest reasons why they're having such a hard time custodying crypto. Because the bank goes, well, listen, jackass, if somebody puts 100 Bitcoin in our custody, we're going to count that as a deposit, and we're going to loan out 12 times the value of that. And then they go, well, wait a minute, the price of Bitcoin fluctuates, which is going to create, basically, the bank is going to be a margin account with their
rehypothecation
as they go through that. But also they're going to have to rely heavily on the Fed to pull money to make sure that they, as the price of Bitcoin goes up and down, is able to keep that reserve level to where their outstanding 12 times reserves, that reserve requirement is met. So that's why they're holding off on this, because that could actually send banks into bankruptcy in literally 10 seconds if there's a huge spike somewhere. So the complexity of this is literally mind-blowing, because that's how banks operate.
They can fuck themselves 6 ways to Sunday.
They
but
can.
They're doing it anyway.
And this is why people say that Bitcoin is the world's most perfect money. You can't do that in the Bitcoin network. You can take Bitcoin and put it into the DeFi space and maybe take a loan on it, or rehypothecate it, or use your fiat. I know, right? I told you I'm never going to get it. Or use that fiat mentality where they take in that Bitcoin, kind of like Celsius got in trouble with. Take that Bitcoin and then loan out more than is required. But that's on the DeFi side. You cannot do that on the Bitcoin network. So that is why they say it's the hardest money out there, and it's the most perfect form of money. You cannot fuck it up on the Bitcoin network. You have to take it outside that network to fuck it up.
Wait.
Whereas DeFi...
You sound like a maxi.
Well, that's why DeFi is such a monkey fuck right now, because you can do whatever you want with whatever token. And behind the scenes, people look and they're like, oh, I can get 15% on my USDT. Hell yeah, I'm in. And they put it in there. And then next thing they know, the company that they put that custody with is loaning out a ton, and it's all that fake fiat USDT. And they get away with it. And I am kind of a maxi on the hard money thing.
By the way, the only DeFi-ish kind of thing that Titan approves of is GUSD, by the way. You want to explain that?
I do. Yeah, so my thoughts on that, if you're going to choose a stable coin, my opinion, and it's my opinion only, please do not take this as the gospel, right? So after being in financial planning for over a decade, it is known far and wide, up and down, as a staple and a rule that New York, the state of New York, is the toughest regulator of money, period. They require, I mean, it's like freaking ridiculous, the hard line they take on making sure if you say that you have this in reserves, no, fuck you, prove it. And until you prove it, you're not selling anything. They're hard, they're tight, they're tough. Gemini US dollar, which is GUSD, Gemini is licensed and run from New York. So to me, that would imply that they are the safest of these stable coins, because when Gemini states, which they do, or at least they did the last time I checked, I can't say that that's the same today because I haven't looked in a while, but last time I looked, they guarantee it's 1-to-1, meaning one GUSD means $1 is of USD actual physical money is deposited somewhere 1-to-1. New York holds them to that. They can't bullshit. They can't play games. They can't pay bribes. They can't do anything. New York will hold them to that. So while you have your mystery around USDC, USDT, all these other weird stable coins that it turns out that when you audit them, they end up with half of their money in commercial paper investments. I trust the state of New York because I've dealt with them before in the securities industry. They do not fuck around. So if I'm going to take a stable coin personally from Titan's wallet, if I'm going to invest in a stable coin, it's going to be GUSD.
Well, then they're giving like 7% interest back. How the fuck are they doing that?
It doesn't have to be GUSD that they're loaning out in order to generate that yield. They're sitting on a ridiculous stack of Bitcoin. They're primarily focused on Bitcoin. So they may be leveraging Bitcoin. They may be leveraging all the other tokens they have on there, which helps pay for the GUSD, those interest rates. They are, I'm sure, loaning out GUSD. But again, that reserve has to be maintained at 1-to-1. That's what they state. New York will hold them to it. So if they do take GUSD and loan that out, they need to make more USD deposits to equal what they've loaned out.
So can they have a Celsius or a Luna happen to them?
For GUSD, I doubt it. For any of their others, I don't know because I haven't dug that deep into it with the other tokens.
Oh, I was just saying, if I got $100 million of GUSD, can I take it to the bank that I'll get that back in the worst market known to man?
I think that if it came to a liquidation, because they say they're 1-to-1, the state of New York makes sure they are 1-to-1. So I would say your odds are extraordinarily high.
Any person on the planet with GUSD, because you can hold GUSD in your private wallet.
Mm-hmm. You can. And if you redeem those, you'll be able to redeem 1-to-1.
I'd love to be able to get those Gemini guys on to talk to us, but figure the odds.
The Winklevi?
The Winklevi. All the Winklevi.
You know what? I'm an asshat like that. I'll send them a message and see if they'll come on.
Oh, yeah. They'll I'm sure you'll get a prompt response from them.
You'd be surprised. They're actually pretty approachable.
Hey, if you can vouch for them, we'll talk to them. What's this? Demology says, but looking at GUSD, they're depegged pretty much all the time.
They have to be because of that reserve requirement. So every stable coin is going to depeg.
Isn't pegging to the dollar means you're 1-to-1 with the dollar, right? And you just said that they have to require that they're 1-to-1 with a dollar.
That's right. They have 72 hours to make that up, though. It's a rolling 72-hour period, so it could depeg for 72 hours. Do you know how fast money goes in and out of GUSD? It's very difficult to keep that pegged. And their reserve requirements, they have 72 hours to make sure that those are pegged 1-to-1.
I'm going to look up GUSD. CoinGecko. I like CoinGecko.
I don't like their UI. I think they have good information, but their UI just turns me off. I use CoinMarketCap more than CoinGecko.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, share. Let's see. Share screen. And then after this, I really will go. I really mean it.
Yeah, we do. We're over 2 hours already.
I know. Who listens to us after 2 hours? 3 people. See, we got 3 people there.
Well, shit. I'm the one that goes through and puts the goddamn chapters on these things. It's going to take me at least an hour at double speed.
I'm perfectly fine with that. Okay. GUSD. Yeah, let's see. $1. They're $1. Depeg. What's a depeg? I mean, it's what's that really mean? Is this a depeg way down here at 97 cents?
97 cents, yes.
Shitting their drawers there?
They give them. Oh, Demology, it's 5 a.m. there. Oh, dear God. Thank you for listening.
He's been listening to us since 3 a.m. Oh, my God. Do you have a life, Demology? Oh, sorry. I don't want to ever insult a listener.
Well, you're not insulting him, but
maybe he's doing the...
Maybe
he's doing the mid-watch or something. The midnight shift. Oh, I'm actually not sharing the screen. I thought I was. Hold on. I want to share this screen.
Oh,
and then I got to go...
depegging. So depegging, you do have a range, right? So if you're 0.996, you're not depegged. If you go to 0.97, you're depegged.
Okay.
But how long was that? You see how it shoots right back up? Like right where your mouse is right there. Well, I'm following along. Yeah. So it's like instantly back up, right? There are times where it'll hover down in that point. Well, yeah, see 0.9996. That's not depegged.
There's one over here. Hold on. Let's see. 9998.
986 is getting close to depegging. Some of those bottom arrows, yeah, that's tough.
Let's look in the past here. Let's go to.
There's one right there. Yeah.
Where?
Look at that big one on the left.
That's in March 2020. We all remember that day.
Yeah.
It's when the bottom fell out of the market.
Yep. And it was there for probably an hour, and then it popped right back up.
Let's go do this. Yeah. Hey, I didn't do that. What the hell? Hour or two, something like that. Okay. Well, you might have a point. So you're trying to say that somehow it will get fixed because they actually have the dollars to keep that.
They have the dollars to do it. Yes. So nothing is 100%. We know that, right? But you have to pick the lowest risk. And to me, based on my history and what I believe in and what I know, anything that's based in New York, it just so happens, I'm not a particular fan so much of Gemini's platform or Gemini dollar or anything. Anything that's based in New York, I have way more faith in than a stable coin that's based anywhere else. Even as a security, from a security outlook, they're required in New York. Other states let them slide if there's a little paper bag with some weight to it that's passed across the desk. Will let people slide on regulations, right? New York, I'm telling you, they do not fuck around, period. There is no fucking around. And mafia capital of the world and whatever you want to call it, there is no fucking around when it comes to money and finance and security and stuff like that. They will shut you down in a New York minute if you try and scam that system whatsoever. And I put a lot of faith in that because I've seen it happen. And I know how hard it is to get registered in New York, to maintain that registration. There's regulators constantly scrutinizing everything. And audits have to be audits, not half-ass audits like in some places. So I trust anything New York. Gemini happens to be in New York. GUSD happens to be with Gemini, who's in New York. So I absolutely trust them way more than anybody else.
Okay. Now that was a big, long story time with Uncle Titan.
Yes.
We're gonna get going because it's late and I want to go to bed because I've gotten myself to a habit of going to bed early instead of really late. So I think Titan will probably stay up later than me tonight, even though he's 3 hours ahead of me.
Yeah,
anyway,
and I got like no sleep.
All right. So thank you guys very much for coming by and listening to us. Most people will be coming by after it's live, I see. That's okay. Thank you guys for listening, and we had a fun time talking.
Talk to you later. Thanks.
I got to find that button here on StreamYard to make the Faz Radio music play again. Is this it?
Yeah, but it's low. There we go.
There we go.
Jam it out.
I got to mute Titan or else he's going to try and sing along.